So I've had a lot of people ask me how I got to the point of being able to exercise like I did in the video that I showed the other day. Um, that is a long and short answer. I had to take a long, hard look at the things that I believed about my body and myself. And I had been told a lot of things that I would now consider damaging by my medical professionals. From the time I was 18, I had been told that I had SI joint dysfunction, that my pelvis was unstable, that I had damaged the ligaments permanently in a swimming event when I was swimming for a D1 school in college. And I had been led to believe that pain meant I had re-injured those ligaments. So over about about 20 years, um, I found that the pain was coming more and more often, and it was growing more and more intense, and it was happening with more and more of the things that I did. So the instructions that I had been given along the way were to stop doing whatever hurt and rest. Take time out, don't push, don't work too hard, definitely don't go to the gym, just don't. All kinds of versions of don't do, protect, slow down. um yeah, and I had this picture that my pelvis was pretty much falling apart because ligaments hold bones together, and I had been told that mine were damaged. They were too stretchy, they were too flexible, but the whole point was my pelvis was unstable. And so I walked around for 20 years believing that was true. um I felt better when PTs would put me back in and spend a little bit of time pulling and yanking and twisting on me, um, for many, many years. So it seemed to me that that must be what was making me better. It was the pain came, I'd go to PT, they'd put me back in, I'd use an SI belt or a TENS unit, and the pain would decrease. As my story went on and time went on, those um, manipulations, adjustments, pelvic putting back inning, whatever you want to call it, uh, helped less and less, which I drew the conclusion must mean I was getting worse and worse. The pain was getting more intense. The things that had helped were no longer helping. So I must be really, really bad, which was confirmed by doctors and physical therapists and other people around me. So I became incredibly frantic and depressed, and at 32, couldn't couldn't figure out how I was possibly going to continue to live at the levels of pain that I was living with two small children, and a husband. And my life was not at all like I wanted it to be. I wasn't working. I wasn't spending time with people. I was pretty much laying in my bed all the time, and even that hurt. So I went off and I had surgery. And the physical therapist and surgeon said, "Oh, 6 to 8 weeks, you'll be great. Takes up to a year to heal. You're going to be fine." Well, I got better because I was no longer afraid that my pelvis was sloshing all over the place because I had screws in it. But my pain stayed pretty significant. I was trying to be incredibly positive as I blogged about it. So I can remember kind of hedging my bets to my physical therapist when he'd say, "Well, what's your pain?" And I'd be like, "I don't know, like a 3." And I was like, "Really? I think it's more like a 6. I mean, I'm still thinking about it a lot and I can't do very much." And if I talked more about what I could do versus a number, I think we would all agree that I was much more disabled than I wanted to believe that I was. Um, I kind of went through with I'm just going to push through it because everything's okay now attitude. And that kind of worked and kind of didn't. And eventually, what ended up happening was I went back to school. I learned things on the internet from very, very smart physical therapists like Anthony Lowe in our group. And I started kind of examining those ideas in light of my own experience. Now, I realize this sounds really academic, But um, if we know that there's research out there that says the SI joint doesn't move when the practitioners do the pelvic rotations and the push here, pull here, and pull on my leg, I know it feels good, but the research says there's no change. So that made me really stop and start to question things. And then looking at things like, well, what had my scans said? Well, nothing was ever identifiable on any of my scans. As I aged, we saw minor disc degeneration, and I mean minor disc degeneration. I always wrote that off and said, well, that wasn't there when the pain started, so that can't possibly be the cause of my pain. I eventually started looking beyond an unstable pelvis and painful tissues and muscle imbalances, because the year of my post-op recovery was all about muscle imbalances. My glutes weren't strong enough. My lateral thigh wasn't strong enough. I needed better glute med control. And we barked up that tree for over a year at physical therapy. Well, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to build muscle. What was wrong with my body? I still felt broken. So as I was examining the different evidence that I was finding amongst physical therapists online, I really had to take a look at what I believed about my own body. I started to see that I really believed that I was fragile, that my muscles were all out of balance, and that I wasn't an athlete anymore. I mean, I was so far past college years um, that it seemed crazy that I could be athletic. I mean, I was an older mom at this point, right? I don't know how 38, 39 makes me an old mom, but whatever. I slowly started doing exercise again. And I found that I was feeling better. The more I walked, the better I felt. I went to a CrossFit class with Anthony and tried some wall balls and some things, and I didn't hurt like I thought I would. Um, I had an entirely different context that maybe I could be strong again. I went back to swimming, which is my first love. There is nothing like beating my body up in the pool that makes me happier. And I realized people that don't swim sounds a little sick, but that's okay. Um, and I went back to practices and I dove off starting blocks and I started hitting flip turns really, really hard. And I wasn't in any more pain. And I felt really good. So I started back in a weight room and I tried CrossFit and I did all of these things. And I realized, you know what? I'm okay. I'm like a normal person. I can do whatever I want. And through those experiences, I started feeling less and less fragile and more whole. And I started feeling more like myself again. And I did more with my kids and I did more with my friends and I went out more and I finished PTA school and I got a career and I was helping other people. And do I have pain from time to time? Sure. When I work out really hard, like you saw in that video, my abs hurt. I'm getting back into shape in a new way. And so this is an expected level of discomfort. I don't even like to call it pain. Um, when I spend a lot of time talking with my friends about their SI pain, that familiar pain, and I dive back deep into my story, I sometimes get some pain. I have been working on my memoir and really dove deep into the emotional abyss of my journey when I wasn't really sure that I wanted to wake up anymore. And I don't know if it's considered wanting to commit suicide if you just don't want to wake up. I didn't have a plan, but I was so tired of the pain. And I dove back into those dark, dark days of my story. And when I woke up after typing about them, uh, I couldn't bear weight on my right leg, and that was always my affected side. I had rattled up so much in my memory, in my nervous system, quite frankly, that my body definitely did not feel safe, and it let me know. And you know what I did? I did some squats. I danced through my kitchen, and the sensation went away. I was safe. There's no more tissue damage, and it wasn't the surgery that fixed me. Um, it was me. It was me breaking down the things I did, slowly re-entering my life, and just doing it, and being afraid and admitting I was afraid, and failing and falling on my face and being all flared up in pain, and learning to manage those things to get to where they don't happen. Now, that is not everybody's pain story. I am incredibly fortunate that I no longer have daily pain. I don't know if everyone can get to pain free. I do know everyone can get to living better. And that is the message that I want to share with Restoring Venus and putting out my stories, is that I've learned, I've done all of the wrong things. I've thought all of the wrong things. I've read research for the last 8 years. I've practiced in a clinic, in a variety of clinical settings. And you know what? When we examine what we think, when we make a plan, and we start re-entering our lives as moms, as wives, as women, as daughters, when we start to put things that have value back into our lives, we get better. We make more room. And then you're able to do things like I did at the gym. Did I get there overnight? Absolutely not. But is it something that you can do? Absolutely. And if you'd like my help, I would be more than happy to join you in your journey as you get back to the things that you love. Go ahead and ask more questions. I'll keep answering to the best of my ability. Have a great day, you guys.